to Gordana Schifanelli. And I'm going to
Thank you, Bernadette, for opening your heart and your home to all of us. You are just a wonderful leader and a very, very, very strong conservative voice. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for coming. I recognize few faces, but I'm so also happy to see so many new faces. And so for those who are watching online, I'm so sorry you're going to hear the story again and again and again. But for those of you who are new, my name is Gordana Schifanelli. I'm born and raised in Yugoslavia, 1971, June 18, that's my birthday. And so now you know that I'm about 50 years old, and I landed to this beautiful state right after NATO bombing in 1999. My husband served United States military. He is a U.S. Army Green Beret, 22 years, and we met overseas right during the NATO bombing. And he had to evacuate. I stayed, and after enormous ordeal trying to get me out of there, I ultimately left my life and my world, and I came here. And when I landed to Maryland, I thought, my goodness, everyone is going to hate me because I'm Serbian. And according to CNN, you're all supposed to hate me. That's what I believed. This was so interesting that for about a week, he used to drive green Dodge Ram truck. And he would drive me around to show me around. I wouldn't leave the car. And one day, he went to Old Leon to get a haircut. And he said, you got to get out of the truck. I said, everybody's going to hate me. And he said, dude, everyone is from somewhere. You got to get out. You got to meet people. I thought, I can't speak English. I thought everyone will hate me. And ultimately, he went to the barber shop. I stayed in the truck. And the barber comes out. And he says, you got to tell your wife, I was 28 years old at the time, you got to tell your wife to get out of that truck and come on in my barber shop. So I did. He was about 80-some years old back then. It was 22 years ago. And he said, take a look at this while I take care of your lovely husband. Take care of this album. He showed me album of pictures of where his family came from. They were Ukrainian Jews that escaped Nazism, and then they came to Annapolis area, and he opened up a barber shop. And he told me at that time, it was 22 years ago, never ever think that Americans would hate anybody because they came from somewhere. You know why? Because we all came from somewhere at some point. And that was the time that I realized how evil CNN and liberal press was. This was 20-something years ago. And I thought I was going to leave it behind, raise my family. I have 3 boys. I became a very successful financial planner, financial advisor for then Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith in Baltimore. I was one of those rare people who actually had a corner office, and I was respected by everybody, even though I was one of the rare females in all men world in brokerage industry. And no one ever discriminated against me personally. It was a cutthroat industry when it existed. But I learned that in America, if you bust your neck, if you work really, really hard, and if you show that you're knowledgeable, no one will ever look at you differently, no matter where you come from, what color your skin is, the way you sound, and it had never changed. Right. You all embraced me to run and support me as your future Lieutenant Governor with this accent. This doesn't happen anywhere else. It doesn't. Nowhere but in the United States of America. Yeah. My appreciation for this country became even stronger when I went to University of Baltimore School of Law, and I went to law school. I had a couple of legal problems I had to take care of. One of it was Wells Fargo's business activities after 2008, and financial collapse happened. You all know what happened. I prevailed, needless to say, and I got my law degree, and then I opened up my law practice. So I worked in financial industry. I am a small business owner. I have my law practice. I have 3 boys. And the United States Naval Academy called and wanted me to teach law and economics, the midshipman course, the last course before graduation, so that they can learn the value of the rule of law and economic remedies, because that was the Department of Humanities at the Naval Academy. And I kept teaching there for the last 7 years. So I've been very busy, as you can see. But one of those things that I told you is that I was not a politician. Never been a politician, never intended to be the politician. And the reason I'm in this race is by pure necessity. I recognized that the country where I escaped from is here, and I don't want it. I didn't leave my world and my life to raise my children in the place where I didn't want them to grow up in the first place. Right. Communism is marching through the state of Maryland. Whether you want to recognize it, whether you think it's a QAnon whack job, as Governor Hogan kept calling Dan Cox in one of those public hearings or public events, but this is not the QAnon scare. It's true. Yeah. And the way you can see it is the way that liberal Democrats and unfortunately some of the Rhino Republicans are calling out us. There is a divide between vaccinated and unvaccinated. There's a divide between oppressor and oppressed. And I don't know who's oppressed and who's the oppressor, but it's all within our power to change it. The children are taught critical race theory. The children are taught how to hate America. And that is what prompted me to throw myself into the public eye in 2020. So in the year of 2020, June the 5th of 2020, it was that ominous election, as we remember it. I received a notice from my school superintendent that the children, by the way, they were locked down because of COVID. This was June 2020. Kids haven't been in school since early March of 2020. They're shut down, locked down. But the superintendent letter titled COVID-19 had the body of the text that talked about recognizing racism, that there is a rampant racism in Queen Anne's County, that there is a systemic rampant racism in Queen Anne's County, and that the children should join her to go and protest against the police. And I thought, this is it. That's it, done. I first reached out to my Republican elected officials. Guess what they did?
Nothing.
How'd you know that?
Nothing.
Gee, figure the odds. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. As a matter of fact, they said the superintendent of public schools has the right to exercise her First Amendment. She can say whatever she wants. And then I got my law hat on, and I thought, well, hang on a minute. While you're performing a public service, you have to represent everybody, and you cannot push personal partisan politics while at work. There are certain limitations. There's the law. You can believe whatever you believe, but school system is nonpartisan. You just can't start promoting Marxist organization at 10 o'clock in the morning while you're keeping the school shut. So you can't do that. So I sent a copy of the law statutes to all the Republican elected officials at the time, and they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it.
At all.
Why? Because they were scared, and they were scared they would get called racist. So I thought, well, I'm not scared. So I started talking publicly. Our schools have been nothing but great. I have 3 boys that went through public schools. The youngest one was in 5th grade, elementary school. And if there is a rampant racism going on, I should know about it. Somebody needs to tell me about it. I want to know who's been racist against whom. My kid is in the classroom. I don't know what's going on. And we have no idea outside of this letter coming from, nonetheless, the superintendent. So I got no response. Until today, there is no evidence or response of a rampant racism. I called sheriff. Sheriff informed me, who's wonderful, by the way. And today is Sheriff's Appreciation Day and Police Appreciation Day. For those of you who didn't remember, thank you guys for taking care of us. And thanks to law enforcement, by the way, who's doing all this great job to keeping us safe. We need you. Yes. But the sheriff informed me that there's some pushing and shoving that happens all the time, girlfriend over boyfriend and vice versa. But there's none of the issues that were referenced in that letter. So the letter was wrong, and the letter was sent
for no other reason but to stir emotional and political response. And I thought that was wrong. No politics in public schools should be the mantra, and it's under the law. Number one. And number two, we need to promote love for our country, not spit on it.
Amen. Yes.
That is something that has to be promoted. So then I started looking into what are the books the children are reading. And that's what I found. A horrible, horrible selection of, promoting, first of all, bad English. I seriously, bad, how do I know? Well, the book that was offered to students 6th through 12th grade, the book was written by a hip hop artist that doesn't have one period, comma, capital letter. So at that time, I was like, why are kids learning bad English? English is my, by the way, third language. So if I could learn it properly, why can't everybody else learn how to speak proper English? So I don't get it. So the kids were learning about that. And there's another book called Americana. And Americana was offered to students 6th through 12th grade. And that book is about a woman that received, from Nigeria, that received scholarship at Princeton University. And she comes to America, she goes to Princeton on a full-blown paid scholarship, and then she writes a book, How We Are So Racist.
Oh my God.
And that is what our kids are supposed to read. And then comes another book, I forgot the name, but it's on shift.net. My husband actually did every single book review and published. He ended up running for the school board. One book that says that, okay, so here's the story. It's a Latin American family, and the child attends one of the public schools, and he's scared. He's so scared because every single time he goes to school and comes home, he's afraid that his father is going to get deported and arrested by these mean Border Patrol agents. So, it was like, look, we don't need children to read books. First of all, the teachers cannot explain the immigration law in the classroom. That's way below their pay grade. Number one. Number two, the kids should not attend school and be scared that if they go home, they might have police or patrol agents deporting their illegal parents who violated the law. So all that should not be taught or used in public schools because there's no appropriate introduction to this. There's no appropriate foundation to immigration laws in the first place. So a kid should not go and feel scared. And one of the directors during the debate over which books we should approve or not actually uttered the word, we can be Nazis. So we can be Nazis. What does this even mean? Nazis were the opposite. The school board, has the duty to read the books, select curriculum, and make sure that kids learn.
They don't read it.
Exactly. So exactly. So you have a job to select the books that are appropriate for children. You can't push social and emotional narrative, and then if you disagree with the books such as a Long Boy or any other books promoting transgender social sex issues, all of a sudden, if you want to remove the book from the curriculum, you turn out to be a Nazi. It's all upside down. It's placed on its head. The justice is out the window, and the new lens of equity came to public schools. Yes. And the equity lens is the socialism. It's socialism. It's bottom line. So what they're doing is they're teaching the kids and the teachers, this has been going on for many, many years, to hate this country, and they're introducing literature to support that hate. Christopher Columbus was a genocidal maniac. Then you have every single negativity that comes out to the children comes from the teachers' book selection and their lens or how they interpret what the children should be doing. So to me, that was the wake-up call. So I approached to my husband and I said, Mark, you served the country once. You got to run for the board. Yeah. And he said, honey, there's like 3 people on the board. It's only me. I'm only one. We got to find somebody else. So I'm thinking, like, how am I going to get another person to run? Oh, by the way, the election is in November and we're in end of June now, 2020. And so I remember there was a woman who used to appreciate this county
and wanted to run for commissioner. Lost by 47 votes. But she was liked by everyone, and she never ran again. So her name's Helen Bennett, and she's an owner of a pet shop, and she's a Marine. So I thought I'm gonna knock on her door and maybe ask her to run, because we need somebody to run. So I came to her office, I asked for her, never met her before, and I said, look, Helen, you know, I'm trying to put up a team of people who can stop critical race theory, Project 1619, and political indoctrination in public schools. And I just thought of you. You're a Marine, you love America. I mean, I'm guessing. You've got to be conservative. I don't even know what your political affiliation is, but you've got to be a conservative. We've got to do something to save these kids. And she looked at me and she said, you know that we're not on a ballot. You got to be on the ballot for people to vote for you. I'm not on any ballot. It's end of June. So we have July, August, September, early October, early voting starting. So we got 3 months. What do you want me to do? I said, so how can people vote for you if you're not on a ballot? Here's my husband, Mark. He's a Green Beret. You're a Marine. You guys can figure it out. There's one person that's already on the ballot. And this is my politics, right? And she goes, I don't know, Gordana, but this doesn't work this way here. You know, it doesn't work the way you're talking about. I said, look, there's no other way. What's the way? Can we tell people to write your name on the line somewhere? And she said, that's called a write-in. I said, well, can we do that? And she said, well, I guess you have to call the local county board of elections and check to see if they can create this lines to put your name on there. And I said, well, why don't you two figure this out, create a campaign, whatever, but it's gonna be a write-in campaign for the Board of Education. We're gonna take these guys down. By then, we had Black Lives Matter and Antifa operatives targeting me like you would never believe is possible. The Naval Academy Alumni Association, Naval Academy Admissions, any place where I worked, Maryland Bar Association, Maryland Attorney Grievance Commission, the mail and hate mail of my termination kept on going and going and going. She needs to be terminated. How do you allow this professor to teach racism to students? Is that what Naval Academy is all about? She's a liar. She's a white supremacist. I was called the words I can't even spell. And seriously, it was so vicious that we were, at one point, we were like, oh my God, if somebody starts throwing poison at my house. One person was posting on the Facebook somewhere, we know where you live. You B word. I mean, the viciousness was so high. But one of the things that was so unusual is who were the leaders. The leader of this action, the leader of this organization wasn't so much a superintendent. It was a white female liberal activist.
Yep.
Who was organizing all of that. And once I figured out who's behind this, I filed a lawsuit. So there's 2 lawsuits that were filed in July of 2020. I asked, kindly, no, don't do this. I asked cease and desist. Stop targeting me and my family. Leave me alone. She wouldn't do it. She actually posted a joke on Facebook that, can you imagine, Schifanelli wants me to stop. Ha, 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 we'll never stop. So we had to do what we had to do. We filed a lawsuit, and the jury trial, first among few, is February the 9th coming up, and the next jury trial is July 19th. But this is the same defendant. She went after individual residents. She went after a gentleman who simply asked, why would you want to defund the police? Well, he got fired from his job. She went after him. Oh yeah. She went after, that's not America. That's not America. You have to have the right to speak. You have to be able to speak your mind without fear that somebody's going to call your boss and get you fired. That is unacceptable. And so the jury will have the chance to hear what's happening. If you have nothing else going on, come on up. It's going to have a public jury trial against that defendant. So while the lawsuits were filed, we organized a very successful and historic write-in campaign. So what we did was we
had weekly meetings. We had volunteers, weekly meetings, and we would find out, okay, who's in District 1, who's in District 2, who's in District 3, who's District 4. All right, what's the event going on with citizens in District 1? What's the event going on with citizens? So we wanted to introduce to these citizens, Mark and Helen, needs to be written in the ballot because nobody else would know that. Ultimately, we did it. And I always ask this, the statistical question, can you even guess how many write-in votes did they get? We were told that if we get 550 write-ins, it's like huge crazy. That's like, we had 12,000.
Oh my God.
People were mad.
So I was all over my county. I mean, District 1 introduced and we created this unique platform for every voter to hear. No politics in school. I don't care what you are. No politics in school. No Project 1619. No critical race theory or any kind of critical theory for that matter. And most importantly, we wanted our public schools to promote trade programs for non-college bound kids. So Mark and Helen won in a landslide. It was a landslide. It was a historic victory on a riding within 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
We created a movement that spread like a wildfire through Eastern Shore. So by August, September, I had Talbot County asking to help. How do we do this? How do you stop this in our schools? So I was I always called it, God only picked me out of 2 million people in Belgrade. My husband found me to bring here. And then God picked me to do it. I was literally like pushed in a wave. And I kept on running. I went to Kent County, Talbot County, Worcester, Somerset, Dorchester. All the Eastern Shore counties started planning. There's so many people running for office right now. I can't even tell you, and I keep getting, thanks Gordana for pushing me to get into the race, whether for the school board, whether for the county executive, whether for the commissioner, whether for any office where you know you're gonna make a difference and you feel passionate about, this is the time. And then I got a call from Dan Cox. And then I got a call and he said, you know what? I am interviewing candidates to run as my lieutenant governor. I never even thought to run for anything. I was very happy educating people how to secure their immediate backyard, school board, county, local commission. I was not in politics. And he said, you know what? You need to serve this country. You've started the movement. That would be a huge help to keep America first, keep Maryland free movement going. I am running on that platform. He volunteered in President Trump's camp during the Pennsylvania challenging of the ballots at the time. And he's a lawyer. He's a delegate in District 7 in Frederick. So I want to make Maryland Florida.
Yes.
We want to. People are leaving our state, and when you listen to Governor Hogan, it looks like the roses are blooming and people are leaving. It's such a dichotomy between the reality and the truth. So, and I thought, well, I'm very passionate about the school board. I'm very passionate about protecting children. I love kids. My house is a mess. I mean, the dog and the kids, but my kids are all well-fed, well-educated. My boys are so well-mannered. They all do dishes, clean bathrooms. They all do the right thing. They're all, But the point of the matter is, you cannot have a country and hate it.
Yeah.
You can't continue to exist on the path to communism and socialism.
Yeah.
On October 15th, I took the training manual for teachers. Guess what's in there?
Yeah.
Individualism versus collectivism. And what does that come from? Exactly. Individualism versus collectivism. Believe it or not, many board members currently right now don't understand that collectivism is a term from the Communist manuscript. Now, unfortunately, I grew up in communism. I had to read Marx. I had to read Lenin's Imperialism as the last stage of capitalism. I know what the fallacies are. It can be a completely different lecture for you if you want to just focus on, zoom on that lens and get educated on that. But the idea that the collective right can trump individual right is absolutely opposite from what our founding fathers intended for this country to be.